Hello everyone, my name is Zach Adkins. I'm the owner of 1% Harder, and today I'd just like to share a little story that I haven't shared publicly on any of my social media, but I think it's time to let everyone know kind of why I started 1% Harder. So, to begin with, around 2 years ago, in the beginning of the year, I had just gone through a significant change in my life, and after this change, that's why I created 1% Harder. And so the main thing that I haven't shared is quitting my porn addiction. This is a super touchy subject, and why I've refrained from sharing it so long is that it might hurt job opportunities later, but I just felt the need to be open and honest with everyone of what I was going through. And it's one of the only things that I've kept since starting 1% Harder. And I think it's been a crazy journey and an awesome journey for that fact. And there were some things that I kept, like this quitting porn, and there were other things that I've been somewhat consistent, but not entirely. So one of those things, like working out, I aspire to have a very healthy body, but a lot of times I fall back into comfortability, and I want 1% Harder to represent the change and the constant change and the keep changing that everyone can do. So the porn story goes back to middle school, where I was introduced to it by some friends, and I knew it was wrong in a sense, that I would always have my eyes covered during inappropriate scenes in movies, and it was just something that my parents did not want me to see, and I didn't understand that. I've heard a couple lessons at church that talked about porn and how it was bad, but there were a lot of things that I didn't understand about it because I was watching it, and it made me feel good, which it does. It releases a lot of dopamine, and I think one of the scary facts is that 12-year-old boys now have access to more beautiful naked women than some of the kings and rulers had 300 years ago. And I didn't understand what this would cause in the long run, and I'll make another video that kind of goes in depth at why I believed I needed to stop, because I didn't believe that I needed to stop for a while, but I had an ex-girlfriend at the time kind of bring this to my attention, and I looked into it and I quit. So the one thing that separates porn and getting rid of that habit from the rest of the habits that I've tried to create is the consistency. It's been 2 years, have not watched porn. Even today, I look away or shield my eyes during inappropriate scenes in movies because I don't want to see it. I know the negative effects that it can have on my brain and my body and my relationships that I have with other people. So I decided to quit, and it was a tough journey. It was uncomfortable for sure, but I had to know my why, and my why was all these different reasons that it was bad for me. And then after that, I had to commit, fully commit. And that's what I have not been doing with some of the other habits that I've tried to create, like working out or eating 3 times a day. So what I did was communicate with other people about this problem. I obviously had my girlfriend at the time she actually put a child lock on my phone, so if I try to search up anything inappropriate, it will be blocked. My parents took my phone and laptop at night before I went to bed, because this is generally the time that it would occur most, is at night. And I had people around me that understood my goals and respected that and did not push me towards what I didn't want to be doing. At this time, I also cut off a best friend, and this was probably the most difficult part of it, because so much history and a great bond between two people, it's really hard to just go silent, and that's what I did. I didn't know how to handle it, so the best thing was for me at the time to just almost put a pause on the relationship. And it was mostly my fault for people pleasing and always saying yes and just doing things that I didn't want to do. But he did not cause my addiction, but I realized that it was addiction, and that some of this material might be more prevalent when I'm hanging around this friend. And so I cut him off for a while. He texted, and I told him I needed more time, and he respected that, and I really appreciate him respecting that. And to kind of finish that story, we met up a couple months later and I had to have a hard conversation with him, and it was an extremely difficult situation. I remember my parents asking me if I'm okay to do it alone, all of this, and he was understanding. And while he might not be on the same path as me, he understood that was my decision, and that I was doing it for me. And he did not have to follow behind me at all. There's no pressure to. But I found the reasons to stop, and he could do whatever he wanted. And so after this, I was on a pretty consistent schedule at that time, and I found myself to be on top of things. And this is kind of when I wanted to make a change, not only just porn, but other habits that I have in my life. And so at this point, when my dad was going to bed, he was taking my laptop and phone, and so that would be 9 or 10 or 11, sometimes a little bit later, or I would ask for special permission to stay up a little bit later and do some homework. But it was a lot of just consistent scheduling. And my dad, he would wait up an hour while I did my homework just to take my computer away at the end of the night. And I really appreciate those supporting people around me. And I realized that you need other people around you to create habits that are this strong. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate my parents for helping me with this. And it was a really difficult conversation to have with them, but they were extremely understanding, and they agreed with my decision. And and during that time, I saw the best habits being created and habits being destroyed. And I started going to church again. I had kind of fallen away from the church, and every single lesson was so, they just spoke to me. It was like God was telling whoever was talking that day that they need to talk about this subject because it's affecting Zach. And this helped me come back to the church, and having a group of friends that were already at church. I explained why I hadn't been there for so long, openly talking about my porn addiction, and what was awesome is they came back to me and they told me that they were going through the same thing. And I think at that moment I realized that some other people might not have the same help that I got, so I want to be that person of help for them. And so I kept having more conversations with people, at school included, and they would come back to me and say that our conversation really helped them, and that meant a lot to me. And I didn't realize the impact that I could make just by having conversations, just by talking about my own experience. And so that's when I started 1% Harder, and I wanted to create a community of accountability to create these habits. And I think it's important that you have some people around you that want the best for you and that understand why you're making these changes, because other people will help you stay in line. I mean, it is a very difficult thing to do, to keep habits. So one of the things that I did was I did the 75 Hard Challenge on my TikTok, and occasionally posted to Instagram, but mostly kept it on TikTok. I did a variation of 75 Hard. It wasn't as strict. Still 2 workouts a day, totaling an hour and a half of working out for 75 days straight. I drank a lot of water. I did read. I didn't stay too consistent with 3 meals a day. I'm sure there were days in there that I probably only had 2 or maybe even 1. And that was a habit that I was able to create over 75 days, not because I had anybody around me telling me to keep going, you gotta do it today. It was social media that kept me going. There was this expectation that I needed to post. There were not many viewers on my videos, but I thought, what if someone's keeping track if I'm doing every single day? And that kept me going. And even a little bit of my parents helped with that, and just, did you do your workout today? Oh, like kind of joking. And there were a lot of times where I would end up doing my workout at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, because I just forgot about it all day. And so 75 Hard was a cool realization that social media, in this instant for habit creation, can also help. And also, backtracking a little bit, during this time where my parents were taking my laptop and all that, I also deleted social media. I didn't use my phone for much other than texting and calling people. And I also would check the IMDb rating, the parents' guide, for every movie that I was about to watch. And my parents knew that if they were watching something inappropriate, they would pause it, and while I was in the room. And that was something that was very helpful for me as well. And sorry, back on the 75 Hard thing, I realized the positive impact social media had on me, because it was subconscious. Maybe no one was watching, probably no one was watching, but the idea that if someone was, that I needed to keep going and prove to myself that I could do it, and prove to them. But that is the goal of 1% Harder and that community, of just make sure that if someone sets a firm goal and they really want to get it done, to push them. It's not mean to push someone towards their goals. people need rest days, and 75 Hard has no rest days, so it was difficult. But if you want to create that habit, you have to have support there, and it might not be what you want to hear, but if you want to create that habit, it's something that you have to do. And so I think 1% Harder is all about accountability, habit creation, and being respectful to other people. I mean, I think that's a huge part of why I was able to keep this habit over 2 years now, because people were respectful of my boundaries, and that is what the OPH community is about, and that is what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for watching.